My best friend convinced me to break up with my fiancé because he was wrong for me. Then I caught them together at his apartment. Olivia and I had been inseparable since freshman year of State University. She was the sister I never had, the one who held my hair back when I was sick, who drove 4 hours to bring me soup when I had the flu, who knew my latte order by heart. She slept in hospital waiting rooms when I had my appendix out, and I'd done the same when her grandmother passed. When I started dating Ethan junior year, she was my biggest cheerleader. "He's perfect for you," she'd gush, watching us study together in the campus library. "You guys are going to get married, and I'll be your maid of honor." I can already see it. Ethan was everything I dreamed of: kind, funny, ambitious. He remembered my favorite flowers were white peonies and brought me chamomile tea when I was stressed about finals. He'd leave little notes in my textbooks and knew exactly how I liked my coffee. After graduation, we moved into a tiny apartment with creaky floors and a view of the parking lot, but it felt like paradise because we were together. 2 years later, he proposed on the same bench where we'd had our first kiss, with a ring he'd been secretly saving for since our first anniversary. That's when Olivia's tune changed completely. It started small, almost imperceptible. Comments about how Ethan seemed controlling when he'd text to check if I got home safely after late classes. How it was weird that he wanted to spend Friday nights with me instead of going to sports bars with his college buddies. She'd roll her eyes when I mentioned our wedding plans, making little sighs when I showed her dress options. "Are you sure he's the one?" she'd ask, tilting her head with fake concern. "You're so young. Don't you want to experience life first? Travel, date other people?" The criticism escalated slowly, like water wearing away stone. She pointed out every tiny flaw. How Ethan chewed too loudly during movies, how he was too nice to be genuine, how he probably only proposed because he was afraid of losing me to someone better. "Real men don't need to propose so quickly," she said one night over wine at her apartment. "He's insecure. That's not attractive in a husband." I started noticing things I'd never seen before. When Ethan surprised me with reservations at the Cheesecake Factory, Olivia called it love bombing. When he gave me space to hang out with friends, she said he was emotionally distant and probably hiding something. The final blow came 6 months before our wedding. Olivia invited me to lunch at our regular spot at the Daily Grind, her face unusually serious. "I have to tell you something," she said, gripping my hands across the table. "I saw Ethan with another woman." They looked close, my world tilted sideways. "Where?" "When?" "Last Tuesday at that new artisanal coffee shop on Main Street." She was blonde, really pretty. They were holding hands, laughing. It looked intimate. I felt sick. Ethan had said he was working late that Tuesday, staying behind to finish a project presentation. "I'm so sorry," Olivia whispered, tears pooling in her eyes. "I didn't want to tell you, but you deserve to know the truth." That night, I confronted Ethan in our kitchen. He was genuinely confused, his face cycling through shock and hurt. "What coffee shop?" "I was at the office until 9:00, he said. "Ask Mark." We ordered pizza to the conference room. "Check with my whole team." But Olivia's words had planted seeds of doubt that grew like weeds. Every explanation felt like a lie. Every reassurance felt manipulative. 2 weeks later, after days of cold shoulders and tense silences, I gave back the ring. Ethan was devastated. "Please tell me what I did wrong," he begged, tears streaming down his face. "We can fix this. Whatever it is, we can work through it." But I was already gone, convinced he was hiding something terrible. Olivia was my rock through the breakup. She brought Ben and Jerry's and Kleenex, let me cry on her shoulder for hours, reminded me I made the right choice whenever I wavered. "You'll find someone better," she promised, stroking my hair. "Someone who deserves you." 3 months later, I needed my emergency phone charger that I'd left at Ethan's apartment. I still had the key. He'd never asked for it back, probably too heartbroken to think of practical details. He was supposed to be at his brother Samuel's wedding in Seattle, a weekend trip I should have been taking with him. I let myself in quietly, planning to grab the charger and leave before the memories could overwhelm me. That's when I heard laughter from the bedroom, Ethan's deep, familiar laugh, and another voice I knew too well. I stood frozen in the hallway, my heart hammering against my ribs like a caged bird. The apartment still smelled like the Bath and Body Works vanilla candles I used to buy. Still had the throw pillows I'd picked out arranged on the couch. Everything looked exactly the same, as if I'd never left, as if our life together had been preserved in amber. Part of me wanted to run, to pretend I'd never heard those voices, never seen what I was about to see. The other part, the part that had been questioning my own sanity for months, needed to see the truth with my own eyes. I crept toward the bedroom, my bare feet silent on the hardwood floor. Ethan had refinished himself the summer after we moved in. Each step felt like walking through quicksand, time stretching impossibly thin. The door was cracked open about 6 inches. Through the gap, I could see the rumpled sheets of the bed we'd shared for 2 years, the dresser where I'd kept my jewelry, the window that faced east so the morning sun would wake us up together. And there they were. Ethan was propped against the headboard, shirtless, grinning at something on his phone. His hair was messy in that way it got after sex, sticking up on one side. Olivia was curled against his chest like a cat, wearing one of his t-shirts. The faded blue one with the small hole near the hem that I'd bought him for his birthday last year. The one I'd worn to bed countless times when he worked late. She still hasn't figured it out, Olivia was saying, scrolling through what looked like my Instagram profile. Her voice carried that familiar note of amusement, the same tone she used when we'd gossip about other people's relationship drama. Look at this post, learning to love myself again. So dramatic. Ethan kissed the top of her head, a gesture so intimate and familiar it made my stomach lurch. I almost felt bad when she gave the ring back. She looked so broken. Please, Olivia scoffed, adjusting her position so she could look up at him. She'll be fine. She always bounces back. Remember when her dad died senior year? 2 weeks later, she was planning her course schedule like nothing happened. She's got this weird ability to just compartmentalize trauma. My vision blurred around the edges. My dad had died of a massive heart attack during finals week of senior year. I'd gotten the call at 3:00 a.m. from Mom, sobbing so hard I could barely understand her words. I'd driven home immediately, stayed for the funeral, then forced myself to return to campus because Dad had always said education was the one thing no one could take from you. I'd spent those weeks after his death in a strange, numb state, going through the motions because falling apart felt like a luxury I couldn't afford. Olivia had been there through all of it, bringing me food when I forgot to eat, sitting with me during the long, sleepless nights, holding me when I finally broke down 2 months later. Or so I thought. How long has this been going on? Ethan asked, trailing his fingers down her arm in a gesture I recognized because he used to do the same thing to me. Since your engagement party, she said casually, like she was discussing the weather. Remember, you were all stressed about the wedding planning, and I offered to help while Princess upstairs was having a meltdown about the caterer. One thing led to another. My engagement party 8 months ago. I remembered that night in vivid detail. How beautiful everything had looked, how happy I'd felt surrounded by family and friends, how grateful I'd been when Olivia volunteered to help Ethan with the decorations while I dealt with a last-minute crisis. The caterer had called to say they'd double-booked our date, and I'd spent 2 hours on the phone trying to find a replacement. Olivia had saved the day, or so I thought, taking care of everything while I was distracted. That night was incredible, Ethan murmured, his voice taking on a dreamy quality. I couldn't stop thinking about you after that. You were wearing that red dress. The one she said made me look like I was trying too hard, Olivia interrupted with a bitter laugh. God, the way she talks about people, always has something critical to say. I remembered that dress. Olivia had asked my opinion when she was getting ready, and I'd told her it was beautiful, but maybe a little much for an engagement party. I thought I was being helpful, honest, in the way best friends should be. Now I realized she'd probably chosen it specifically to catch Ethan's attention. The coffee shop story was genius, Ethan said, shifting so he could see her better. Where did you come up with that? Please, I know her better than anyone. She's always been paranoid that people are lying to her. Always looking for signs of betrayal. Daddy issues, probably. Her dad was never around when she was little, always working. She told me once she used to think he was cheating on her mom because he came home so late. They laughed together, a sound that made my stomach turn violently. I pressed my hand against the wall to steady myself, trying not to make any noise. Ethan's laugh trailed off. I do feel a little bad about how we did it, though. We were together for 3 years. That has to count for something. And you were bored out of your mind for the last 2, Olivia shot back, propping herself up on her elbow. You told me yourself you only proposed because you thought it was what you were supposed to do, because she kept dropping hints about rings and weddings, and you felt trapped. True, Ethan admitted, and something inside me shattered. She was so predictable. Never wanted to try new things. Never wanted to be spontaneous. Everything had to be planned months in advance. You're different, Olivia corrected, her voice confident. I'm better. In every way. More fun, more adventurous, better in bed. Definitely better in bed, Ethan agreed, and I had to bite my lip to keep from making a sound. The phone in my hand nearly slipped from my sweaty palm. I'd heard enough to destroy me, but I couldn't seem to move. It was like watching a car accident in slow motion, horrifying, but impossible to look away from. What do you think she's doing right now? Olivia asked, settling back against Ethan's chest. Probably at home, eating Ben and Jerry's and watching romantic comedies, feeling sorry for herself. She's tough, Ethan said, though his tone suggested he didn't really care either way. She'll find someone else eventually. Someone who appreciates her stability. The way he said stability made it sound like a disease. God, I hope not, Olivia said with genuine disgust. Can you imagine having to double date with her and some poor guy? She'd probably spend the whole time analyzing their relationship and offering unsolicited advice, like she did with us. Yeah, Ethan agreed, always asking if I was happy, if there was anything we needed to work on. It was exhausting. I'd ask those questions because I loved him, because I wanted our relationship to be strong, because my parents had divorced when I was 12, and I'd sworn I'd never let communication issues destroy my marriage the way they destroyed theirs. Well, you don't have to worry about that anymore, Olivia purred, leaning up to kiss his neck. It's just us now. Just us, Ethan repeated, and there was something in his voice, satisfaction, relief, that made me feel physically sick. I'd heard enough, more than enough. I backed away from the door carefully, my legs shaking so badly I could barely walk. In the living room, I spotted my phone charger plugged into the wall outlet behind the couch, exactly where I'd left it 3 months ago. But I hadn't just come for the charger anymore. I had a different mission now. I pulled out my phone with trembling fingers and opened the voice memo app. Then I walked back to the bedroom door and pushed it open wide. Having fun? I asked, my voice somehow steady despite the chaos in my chest. The effect was immediate and devastating. They sprang apart like teenagers caught by parents. Olivia scrambling to cover herself with the sheet while Ethan fumbled for his pants on the floor. The look of pure terror on both their faces would have been comical if my heart wasn't breaking into 1,000 pieces. It's not what it looks like, Ethan stammered, hopping on one foot as he tried to get his leg through his jeans. His face had gone pale, except for 2 bright red spots on his cheeks. Really? I held up my phone, making sure they could see the voice memo app was running. Because I've been standing here for the last 10 minutes, and it looks like my best friend and my ex-fiancé have been having an affair since our engagement party. Olivia's face cycled through several emotions: shock, guilt, defiance, and finally something that looked almost like relief. You can't just walk into someone's apartment. I still have a key, I said calmly, surprised by how controlled I sounded. Ethan never asked for it back. Probably because you two were too busy playing house to think about practical details. Ethan found his voice, though it came out as a croak. Look, I can explain. Oh, please do, I said, crossing my arms. Explain how you've been sleeping with my best friend for 8 months. Explain how she invented a story about you cheating to break us up. Explain how you've both been laughing about my daddy issues and my paranoia while pretending to comfort me through our breakup. The color drained completely from Ethan's face. You heard everything, the coffee shop story. How I'm boring and predictable. How you only proposed because you felt trapped. How she's better in bed. Really heartwarming stuff. Olivia had been quiet during this exchange, but now she stood up, pulling Ethan's shirt down to cover her thighs. When she looked at me, her mask had finally slipped completely, revealing something cold and calculating underneath. You know what? I'm glad you found out, she said, her voice sharp. You deserve to know the truth. Olivia, Ethan warned, looking genuinely panicked. No, I'm done pretending, she snapped, whirling to face him. She was going to find out eventually. I'm tired of sneaking around. She turned back to me, and I saw a stranger wearing my best friend's face. You want the truth? Fine. Ethan was miserable with you. Absolutely miserable. He told me himself that being with you felt like being married to his grandmother. Safe, boring, and sexless. Each word hit like a physical blow, but I kept the phone recording. This was evidence now. You were holding him back, she continued, gaining momentum. He's got ambition, dreams, and you just wanted to play house in that pathetic little apartment. You never encouraged him to take risks or pursue better opportunities. What opportunities? I asked, genuinely confused. He got offered a position in Chicago last year. Did you know that? A promotion that would have doubled his salary. But he turned it down because you threw a fit about leaving your precious hometown. I stared at Ethan. You never told me about any job offer. Ethan couldn't meet my eyes. It wasn't the right time. He never told you because he knew you'd guilt him into staying, Olivia interjected. Just like you guilted him into proposing before he was ready. Just like you guilt everyone into doing what you want. I never guilted anyone into anything, I said quietly. Please. You're the queen of passive-aggressive manipulation. Poor me, my dad died. Poor me, I'm so insecure. Poor me, why doesn't anyone understand me? Her voice had taken on a mocking tone that made my skin crawl. You know what Ethan told me the first night we slept together? Olivia, stop, Ethan pleaded, but she was beyond stopping now. He said being with you was like dating a wounded bird, always needing reassurance, always needing to be handled with kid gloves. He said he felt more like your therapist than your boyfriend. The cruelty in her voice was breathtaking. This was someone I'd trusted with my deepest secrets, my worst fears, my greatest hopes, someone I'd considered family. Is that true? I asked Ethan directly. He looked like he wanted to disappear into the floor. Some of those conversations were taken out of context. So it is true, I nodded, surprised to find that this revelation hurt less than I'd expected. Maybe because it was so far beyond what I'd thought possible that my brain couldn't fully process it. Look, Olivia said, her tone shifting to something that might have been intended as conciliatory. This doesn't have to be ugly. You're young. You'll find someone else. Someone more compatible with your personality. Someone more boring. You mean someone who appreciates my need for stability? I corrected, almost laughing after everything she just said. She was still trying to manipulate me. How long have you been planning this? I asked. Planning what? The breakup. How long have you been working to sabotage my relationship? Olivia's eyes flickered just for a second, but it was enough. I wasn't. Remember Liam from sophomore year? You told me he was seeing someone else. Was he? Or did you tell him I wasn't interested? Remember Noah from my junior year internship? You said he was just using me for homework help. Was he? And Caleb, the one I really liked, you said he thought I was clingy. For the first time, Olivia looked genuinely uncomfortable. I was protecting you. You've been doing this for years, I realized aloud, keeping me single and dependent on you. That's ridiculous. Is it? Name one relationship you encouraged me to pursue. Just one. Silence filled the room like a toxic gas. You can't, can you? I continued. Because you've spent 6 years systematically destroying any romantic connection I tried to make. The only reason Ethan lasted was because I met him when you were studying abroad and couldn't interfere. I was being a good friend, Olivia said, but her voice lacked its earlier conviction. No, you were being a possessive narcissist who couldn't stand the idea of sharing my attention. Ethan had been silent during this exchange, but now he cleared his throat. Maybe we should all just take a step back. Shut up, both Olivia and I said simultaneously. I turned back to her. You know what the saddest part is? I really loved you. I thought you were the sister I never had. I would have done anything for you. I loved you too, she said, and for a moment her voice cracked. But you were never satisfied. You always wanted more. More time, more attention, more emotional support. It was exhausting, so you decided to take the one person who made me happy. I didn't plan for this to happen, she said, gesturing between herself and Ethan. It just did. Bullshit, I said, the word coming out harder than I'd intended. You planned this the moment you saw how happy Ethan made me. You couldn't stand it. Tears were running down her cheeks now, but I felt nothing. No sympathy, no urge to comfort her like I would have just an hour ago. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I'm so sorry." "No, you're not. You're sorry you got caught." I turned to Ethan, who had been standing frozen throughout this confrontation. "And you. Do you have anything to say?" He opened his mouth, closed it, then tried again. "I never meant for it to happen this way." "What way did you mean for it to happen?" "I don't know. I thought maybe after some time had passed, we could try to be friends again." I stared at this man I'd imagined growing old with and realized I didn't know him. "Get out," I said quietly, my voice finding some strength. "Both of you." "I need to think." "Excuse me," Olivia whipped around. "I'm not going anywhere." "She's the one who—" "Get out," Ethan shouted, his face red with anger or embarrassment or both. "This is my apartment." I was already heading for the door, my mission accomplished. I had everything I needed. "This isn't over," Olivia called after me. "We need to talk about this like adults." I turned back one last time. "No, we don't. We're done. Permanently." I grabbed my charger on the way out and left them to sort out the mess they'd created. The elevator ride to the parking garage felt surreal. My hands were steady as I pressed the button. My breathing was even. My heart rate had returned to normal. I felt strangely calm, like I was watching everything happen to someone else. It wasn't until I was sitting in my car that the reality hit me. They'd been laughing at me for months. They'd been sleeping together while I questioned my own sanity, while I blamed myself for the relationship falling apart, while I grieved the loss of the future I'd imagined. I sat in that parking garage for 20 minutes, crying harder than I had since Dad died, not just for Ethan, but for Olivia, too. For the friendship I'd thought we had. For the years I'd wasted caring about someone who saw me as an amusing pet project. When the tears finally stopped, I drove home in a daze. My apartment felt different somehow, smaller, quieter, but also safer. Everything here was mine alone. No shared memories, no compromised choices, no need to consider anyone else's feelings. I sat on my couch and played back the recording. Hearing it again made it real in a way that being there hadn't. The casual cruelty in their voices, the way they dissected my personality like I was a specimen in a lab, how comfortable they looked together. My phone started buzzing almost immediately. Text after text. "Ethan, please don't do anything you'll regret. We need to talk." "Olivia, you're being dramatic." "Let me explain." "Ethan, I know you're hurt, but posting that recording won't help anyone." "Olivia, I still care about you. This doesn't change our friendship." "Ethan, I'll do anything to fix this. Just tell me what you want." "Olivia, fine. Don't talk to me. See if I care." I turned off my phone and ran a bath, the first one I'd taken since moving out of Ethan's place. I needed to wash off the feeling of that apartment, the smell of his Dior Sauvage cologne and her Chanel No. 5 perfume, the memory of seeing them together in what used to be our bed. As I sank into the hot water, I started planning. The recording was good, but it wasn't enough. I needed more evidence, more proof of the systematic way they destroyed my relationship and my self-esteem. I needed to document everything before I forgot the details. I spent that night writing. Every conversation I could remember, every time Olivia had criticized Ethan or vice versa, every moment when she'd convinced me I was being paranoid or insecure. The pattern was so clear when I laid it all out chronologically. She started her campaign against Ethan almost immediately after he proposed, subtle at first. Comments about how rushed the engagement was, how maybe we should live together longer before making such a big commitment, then more direct attacks on his character, his habits, his intentions. Meanwhile, she'd been building herself up as the perfect alternative, always available when Ethan wasn't, always understanding when he was thoughtless, always ready with advice about how I deserved better. I'd been so focused on saving my relationship that I'd never noticed she was the one trying to destroy it. The next morning, I woke up feeling clearer than I had in months. I knew exactly what I needed to do. First, I called in sick to work. Then, I drove to Olivia's apartment. She answered the door in pajamas, her eyes red and puffy. "Thank God you're here. We need to talk." "We do," I agreed, pushing past her into the living room I'd spent countless hours in, the scene of so many heart-to-heart conversations that now felt like elaborate lies. I'm so sorry about yesterday, she began, settling onto the couch and patting the cushion beside her in our usual configuration. I was upset and I said things I didn't mean. Which things didn't you mean? I asked, remaining standing. That Ethan was miserable with me. That I'm boring and predictable. That you're better in bed, she flinched. I was angry. You caught us in a really vulnerable moment. Vulnerable, I repeated. Is that what we're calling it? Look, I know this is complicated, but our friendship doesn't have to end because of this. Ethan and it's probably not going to work out anyway. He's still hung up on you. Even now, she was manipulating, trying to find an angle that would get her what she wanted. How long? I asked. How long what? How long have you been planning to break us up? I wasn't planning anything. It just happened. The coffee shop story just happened. The lies about other men I dated just happened. The constant criticism of Ethan just happened. Her composure cracked slightly. I was trying to protect you. From what? From getting hurt. From making a mistake. From settling for someone who wasn't good enough for you, but Ethan was good enough for you. That's different. How? Because I know who he really is. I know what he's capable of. You saw what you wanted to see. The audacity was breathtaking. Even caught red-handed, she was still trying to convince me this was for my own good. Show me your phone, I said. What, your phone? Show me your text history with Ethan. That's private, so was my relationship. But that didn't stop you. We stared at each other for a long moment. Finally, she shook her head. I'm not doing this. You're acting crazy. Crazy, I repeated. Like when I thought Ethan might be cheating. Like when I worried our relationship was falling apart. You helped convince me I was being paranoid. Remember, because you were being paranoid. No, I was being gaslit by my boyfriend and my best friend. I pulled out my phone and showed her the voice memo app. I'm going to ask you one more time. How long have you been sleeping with Ethan? Her eyes widened when she saw I was recording again. You can't record me without my consent. Actually, I can. This is a one-party consent state. Look it up. For the first time since I'd known her, Olivia looked genuinely afraid. What do you want? She asked. The truth. All of it. She was quiet for so long, I thought she wasn't going to answer. Then in a voice barely above a whisper, she said, since the engagement party. And the other men. How many relationships did you sabotage? I didn't sabotage anything. I just pointed out incompatibilities. How many, Olivia? I don't know. A few, Liam, a nod. Noah, another nod. Caleb, he wasn't right for you either. According to who? According to me. I know you better than anyone. No, you know how to control me better than anyone. There's a difference. I stopped the recording and put my phone away. I had what I needed. I'm going to ruin your life, I said calmly. What? You heard me. I'm going to tell everyone what you did. Your family, your coworkers, our mutual friends. I'm going to make sure everyone knows exactly who you really are. You can't do that. Watch me. I headed for the door, but her voice stopped me. You're making a mistake. Ethan will never forgive you for this. He'll hate you for destroying what we have. I turned back one last time. Ethan is welcome to hate me. At least it'll be honest emotion for once. That evening, I posted the recording on TikTok and Instagram with a simple caption. When your best friend and ex-fiancé think you're too stupid to figure out they've been having an affair for 8 months. Within an hour, it had dozens of views and comments. Within 4 hours, it had been shared hundreds of times. By the next morning, it was viral on TikTok and Instagram, with thousands of people sharing their own stories of friendship betrayal. My phone exploded with messages, some supportive, some critical, some just curious about the drama. Ethan's family saw it. Olivia's parents saw it. Their coworkers are college friends, people I hadn't talked to in years. Everyone saw it. The response was overwhelmingly supportive. People were outraged on my behalf, calling Olivia and Ethan manipulative and cruel. Several mutual friends reached out to apologize for not seeing what was happening, to share their own suspicions they'd kept to themselves. But the best response came from an unexpected source, Ethan's sister-in-law. She called me directly, her voice shaking with anger. I need you to know that video explains so much, she said. Ethan's been different since you broke up. Cold, distant. And Olivia, she's been around constantly, acting like she's part of the family now. But something she said never made sense. Like what? She told us you were emotionally abusive, that you isolated Ethan from his friends and family, made him feel guilty for spending time with anyone else. She painted you as this manipulative person who had him wrapped around your finger. My stomach dropped. And you believed her. We didn't know what to believe. Ethan seemed so depressed after the breakup, and she was the only one there to fill in the gaps. She said you were spreading lies about them having an affair. The layers of manipulation were staggering. Even after their affair was exposed, Olivia had been working to control the narrative, to make me look like the villain. There's more, Ethan's sister-in-law continued. She's been pushing Ethan to cut contact with his family. Says we remind him too much of you, that he needs a fresh start. Classic isolation tactics. I should have seen it coming. What made you realize she was lying? I asked. The recording. The way she talked about you. The casual cruelty. That's not how someone talks about a person they're trying to protect someone from. That's how someone talks about a person they hate. We talked for another hour, comparing stories and piecing together the full scope of Olivia's manipulation. It was worse than I'd imagined. She hadn't just destroyed my relationship with Ethan. She'd been systematically isolating him from everyone who might question her version of events. 3 days after I posted the video, Olivia showed up at my workplace. I was leaving the office around 6:00 when I spotted her leaning against my car in the parking garage. She looked terrible, unwashed hair, dark circles under her eyes, clothes that looked like she'd slept in them. We need to talk, she said as I approached. No, we don't. You've ruined my life, she said, her voice breaking. Do you know what you've done? I told the truth. If that ruined your life, maybe you should have thought about that before you decided to destroy mine. I've been getting death threats. My boss called me in for a meeting about my personal drama affecting the workplace. My parents won't talk to me. Good, I said, the word coming out harder than I'd intended, but I didn't take it back. How can you be so cruel? She asked, tears streaming down her face. We were best friends. No, we were. I was your victim. There's a difference. I loved you, she sobbed. I still love you. You're like a sister to me. Sisters don't systematically destroy each other's lives for sport. It wasn't for sport. I was trying to protect you. From what? Happiness. Love. The chance to build a life with someone who cared about me. From making a mistake. From settling for someone who wasn't good enough. Ethan wasn't good enough for me, but he was good enough for you. She didn't have an answer for that. Get away from my car, I said, pulling out my keys. Please, she begged, grabbing my arm. Just give me a chance to explain, to make this right. I looked down at her hand on my arm, the same hand that had comforted me through heartbreaks, that had braided my hair during sleepovers, that had held mine during my father's funeral. There is no making this right, I said quietly. What you did was unforgivable. People forgive worse things all the time, maybe. But I'm not one of those people. I got in my car and drove away, leaving her standing alone in the parking garage. That was the last time I saw Olivia in person, but it wasn't the last time she tried to contact me. Over the next several months, she sent emails, letters, gifts, flowers. Each message was different, sometimes apologetic, sometimes angry, sometimes trying to rewrite history to make herself look better. Ethan was more persistent. He showed up at my apartment multiple times, left voicemails, sent long texts explaining his side of the story. According to him, Olivia had seduced him, manipulated him, convinced him that I didn't really love him. She made me believe you were only with me out of habit, he said in one particularly long voicemail. She said you told her you were having second thoughts about the engagement, but didn't know how to back out without hurting me. Even his apologies were designed to make himself look like a victim. I changed my phone number, blocked them on all social media platforms, and asked my building security to keep them away from my apartment. Slowly, mercifully, the contact attempts decreased. 6 months after the video went viral, I was promoted to senior marketing manager at my company. The drama had actually helped my career. Several colleagues mentioned being impressed by how professionally I'd handled the situation, how I'd continued to do excellent work despite personal chaos. I started dating again, cautiously at first. The betrayal had made me hyper-aware of red flags, suspicious of people's motives in a way I'd never been before. But therapy helped, and gradually I learned to trust my instincts again. The first man I dated seriously was Benjamin, a high school teacher I met at Barnes and Noble. He was patient with my trust issues, understanding about my reluctance to introduce him to friends too quickly. When I finally told him the whole story, showed him the video that was still circulating online, he was horrified but not surprised. "People like that exist," he said simply. "They see other people's happiness as something to be conquered or destroyed. The important thing is that you got out." A year after everything happened, I got an unexpected message from Ethan's brother, Samuel. He was getting married and wanted to invite me to the wedding, not to cause drama, but because his fiancé had seen the video and insisted I should be there. "Ethan won't be coming," he assured me. He and Olivia moved to Nashville a few months ago. Something about a fresh start. I declined the invitation, but I appreciated the gesture. It felt like closure in a way I hadn't expected. 2 years later, I was engaged myself, to Benjamin, who proposed during a quiet weekend at a cabin we'd rented for our anniversary. The ring was nothing like the one Ethan had given me, and I was grateful for that. This felt completely different, completely mine. The wedding planning was joyful in a way I'd never experienced before. No second guessing, no outside criticism, no manipulation disguised as concern, just two people who loved each other making decisions about their future together. The night before the wedding, my sister asked if I ever wondered what would have happened if Olivia and Ethan hadn't betrayed me. "Sometimes," I admitted, "but not in the way you'd think." "What do you mean? I don't wonder if I'd be happier. I wonder how long it would have taken me to figure out who they really were. How much more damage they could have done if I'd married Ethan while Olivia was still in my life. You think they would have kept it up. I think Olivia would have found a way to destroy my marriage eventually. And I think Ethan would have let her because it would have been easier than standing up to her. That's a pretty dark way to look at it. Maybe. But it's also realistic. Some people are just broken in ways that make them destructive to everyone around them. My wedding day was perfect. Small, intimate, filled with people who genuinely cared about Benjamin and me. As I walked down the aisle, I thought briefly about the wedding I'd planned with Ethan, how different it would have felt, how much anxiety I would have carried about whether everything was perfect enough. This felt effortless by comparison, right in a way that relationship never had, even in its best moments. During the reception, my maid of honor, my sister, gave a speech about resilience and the importance of surrounding yourself with people who want you to succeed. She didn't mention Olivia or Ethan by name, but everyone who knew the story understood the subtext. Sometimes the worst thing that happens to you leads to the best thing that happens to you, she said, raising her glass. And sometimes losing people who never really loved you makes room for people who do. The toast was echoed around the room, and I felt a profound sense of gratitude, not just for Benjamin, but for my escape from a life that would have slowly suffocated me. 3 years into my marriage, I got a message from an unknown Facebook account. The profile picture was clearly fake, but the message was definitely from Olivia. "I know you probably don't want to hear from me, but I needed you to know that Ethan and I broke up. We moved to Nashville together, but it fell apart pretty quickly. Turns out we didn't have much in common besides hating our situations. I've been in therapy for the past year, trying to understand why I did what I did. My therapist says I have abandonment issues that make me sabotage other people's relationships, so they won't leave me first. I know that doesn't excuse anything, but I wanted you to understand that it was never really about you. I see that you got married. He looks like a good guy. I'm genuinely happy for you, and I'm sorry it took me this long to say that. I don't expect you to forgive me or respond to this. I just needed you to know that I'm trying to be a better person now. That what I did to you was the worst thing I've ever done. And I think about it every day. I hope you're happy. You deserve to be happy." I read the message 3 times, then deleted it without responding. Benjamin found me sitting quietly on the couch afterward, staring at nothing. "You okay?" he asked, settling beside me. "Olivia contacted me. What did she want? To apologize, I think. To tell me she's in therapy and understands why she did what she did. How do you feel about that?" I considered the question seriously. "Indifferent, mostly. I'm glad she's getting help, but it doesn't change anything for me. You don't feel any desire to reconnect, even after an apology?" "No. Some things can't be fixed with an apology. Some people prove they're not safe to have in your life, and all the therapy in the world doesn't erase that proof. Benjamin nodded. That seems healthy. It took me a long time to get here. For a while, I felt guilty about cutting her off completely. She was such a big part of my life for so many years. But she was also the part of my life that was holding me back from everything good. From Ethan, yes, but also from trusting my own judgment, from believing I deserved real love, from understanding what healthy relationships actually look like. You think you would have figured that out eventually? Maybe. But probably not while she was constantly undermining my confidence and isolating me from other people who might have helped me see the truth. That night, I blocked Olivia's new account and changed my privacy settings to prevent her from creating others to contact me. It felt like closing the last door on that chapter of my life. 5 years later, Benjamin and I bought our first house, a small Victorian with a garden and enough bedrooms for the family we were planning to start. As we painted the spare room that would eventually become a nursery, I found myself thinking about trust and loyalty and the difference between friends and family. Do you ever miss having a best friend? Benjamin asked during a break, both of us covered in a soft, buttery yellow paint. I have you, I said simply. That's different, though. Don't you miss having someone to call when you need to complain about me? I laughed. I call my sister for that. But it's not the same as having someone who's known you since college, who knows all your history. Someone who knows all your history used that knowledge to destroy your life, I pointed out. I'll take quality over history any day. Fair point. I had friends now, colleagues I enjoyed spending time with, neighbors I could rely on, women from my book club who made me laugh. But I was more careful about intimacy, more protective of my private life. The experience with Olivia had taught me that not everyone who claims to love you has your best interests at heart. It was a hard lesson, but not one I regretted learning. 6 years after the wedding, Benjamin and I welcomed our daughter. As I held her in the hospital, exhausted but overwhelmed with love, I thought about the person I'd been before everything happened. Naive, trusting, willing to overlook red flags because I wanted to believe the best about people. That person was gone, replaced by someone more cautious, but also more confident. Someone who trusted her own instincts and didn't need constant validation from others to feel worthy of love. She's perfect, Benjamin whispered, tracing our daughter's tiny fingers. She is, I agreed. And we're going to make sure she knows her worth so no one can ever convince her she doesn't deserve good things. Sounds like a plan. As I looked at my daughter's face, so new, so full of potential, I made a silent promise. She would never doubt her own judgment because someone she trusted was gaslighting her. She would never sacrifice her happiness to avoid abandonment. She would never confuse manipulation with love. The betrayal that had nearly destroyed me would protect her instead. And in that way, maybe everything that happened had been worth it.